Look, Daddy, teacher says every time a bell rings, an angel gets his wings.
That's right. That's right. Attaboy, Clarence.
Guest to jumpstart your weekend. Mantz and Mitchell, you're on the air.
Thank you, our buddy Eric Crema. I hope he's having a wonderful holiday season. Good guy, Eric. I'm Gary Mantz.
I'm Suzanne Mitchell.
Hello, everybody. Happy holidays to you. Glad that you have joined us today. Glad for another chance of a Friday to be working with bad boy Benny Mathers. No coal in his stocking, at least not coming from us, Benny. Always good to be working with you, sir.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure to be here with you also, and you're my little breakfast buddies back.
Nice. I like that. And we are here today. This is just a lot of fun for us whenever we can get together with, I'm just going to say it, he's my favorite Canadian, and there are several that I like. Some I admire.
All right.
And on the admiration list, at the top of Santa's list, as far as I'm concerned, is Garnet Schulhouser. We get a chance to do some metaphysical Q&A once again with him, dressed in holiday style.
Yes, we have holiday questions for him today.
But before we get into that, Benny, are you there?
Oh, yeah, I'm still here. Never leave you.
Okay, because sometimes he bebops. He has other things
bebops,
to do.
Yeah.
There. So I did want to mention now, in terms of hockey, and I'm wearing my Lightning hat. Now, let's just set the table because we have a Canadian on here. So it's time to talk hockey.
Their sport.
The Chicago Blackhawks are reeling from the Seattle massacre. Last night, they lost to the Kraken. Somebody released the Kraken, and the Blackhawks felt the sting to the tune of 7-1.
Yeah, it was quite the blowout.
Wow. Unbelievable. And 7 is the magic number if you're a fan of, and we are, of our regional team here in Florida, the Tampa Bay Lightning. They won 7-4 over the Edmonton Oilers. And the big news there is Steven Stamkos, star goal scorer, one of them, Kucherov is another one, but Steven Stamkos, hey folks, he scored 4 goals. It was a diamond performance by Steven Stamkos, only the third time in Lightning franchise history that feat has been achieved. And it looked like the Oilers were ready to put the game away after 2 periods. And as the color analyst said, I don't know what was said in that locker room between the second and third periods, but they came out storming and took over the game, scoring 5 goals in the third period. And Stamkos, with his game total of 4, achieving that diamond performance. That's truly extraordinary. A hat trick's a big deal. Then you add one and you've got a diamond performance.
It's absolutely ridiculous. But a round of applause because I know they're listening to your show right now. So,
Quite sure.
Yeah, of course. Right. All the entire Lightning
hockey
team.
players listening.
Right.
You're all gathering around one radio, I'm sure. So hockey is fun. It's that time of year. We're well into the season now, and we're starting to see trends develop. And look at those Seattle Kraken. I just think that's wonderful that they're doing as well as they are. It seems like if you have a master strategy, ask the Las Vegas Golden Knights, that you can plan ahead and think, okay. Now, of course, fate intervenes. We know that. But the Golden Knights in Las Vegas just decided they were going to win a Stanley Cup as quickly as they could. And I think they were aiming for 7 seasons where they thought they could pull that off according to ownership. And they did it in 6, I believe, if I have my arithmetic correct. And they did it, and they are the reigning champs, but many are grasping for that cup in their imaginations, and one team will hoist it at the end of the season. I don't know who, but it's an exciting season in the NHL.
Yeah, it'll be a fantastic meetup. And wasn't it the first year for the Golden Knights? Weren't they like in the playoffs their first year too? And they had like at the last game before they
made the finals.
Yeah.
They made the Stanley Cup final in their first year and won a game. And that's all they did. But I mean, to make the final in your first year in existence, hello, that's just incredible in itself. That's a legend in the NHL right there.
Yeah, we were hoping for that, but we fell a little short. But that's okay. We're all right with that. We're okay with
getting much better. Getting more aggressive. You can see that in their play, much more proactive.
Okay, that is the hockey report.
There we go.
Mitchell.
which also doubles as a briefing for our friend Garnet Schulhouser in case he hadn't gotten the word on that.
A Canadian who, I think hockey was invented in Canada, if I'm not mistaken, but we'll see. Maybe he knows.
Well, if it wasn't invented there, it was perfected there.
Perfected there. Yeah, there you go. So tell us a little bit about Garnet Schulhouser, and let's bring this nice man on with us.
Absolutely. Garnet Schulhouser is a retired lawyer who lives near Victoria on Canada's beautiful Vancouver Island with his wife Kathy and their little dog Abby. Many years ago, Garnet left his lucrative law practice after someone incredibly wise and immensely kind challenged him to consider a far richer way to live. In the process, one that asked much of the author but returned vastly more, Garnet dug deep into his soul to discover, quote, the ineffable joy of spiritual enlightenment, unquote. He has not stopped writing and talking about it since. And so, for the 12th time, we welcome to our show Garnet Schulhouser. Garnet, how are you doing today, sir? And happy holidays.
I'm doing really well, thank you. And how are you doing? And happy holidays to you as well.
We're having a good time. We really are. We're going to get some weather tomorrow. It's mild out there today, but here in the Sarasota area, in fact, throughout Florida, pretty much, we're going to be experiencing heavy moisture Saturday and Sunday, but tomorrow we're really going to get blasted. So, and I think this has to do with El Nino conditions, because in Florida, uncharacteristically, because people flock down here for the winters, it's going to be milder, cooler, that means, and also wetter in winter. So we're bracing ourselves for whatever impact is on the way, and we're going to get a foretaste of it tomorrow. How about where you live?
It's nice. It's like in Celsius, it's like +8. I'm not sure what that is in Fahrenheit, but it's sunny today. We haven't had any snow, lots of rain as usual, but we're not going to have a white Christmas according to the weather forecasters. So that's fine by me.
And it turns out neither are we there, but it won't be a white Christmas, but it might be a wet Christmas. We will have to see about that. Well, it's always great to have you with us, Garnet. And to lead,
I have a question.
Well, why don't you ask?
Does spiritual enlightenment include hockey?
Of course.
Are you a hockey fan, Garnet, or are you not a hockey fan? You got the Vancouver Canucks right there.
Playing well.
Yeah, we do, but I had seasons tickets when I lived in Calgary with the Flames. And so I'm still kind of a Flames fan, but I've kind of lost a bit of interest because neither the Canucks nor the Flames have been doing very well recently. Although I note that a few days ago, was it last week, that the Canucks beat the Lightning at home for the first time since 2016. Wow.
Yes.
You know,
which
that
doesn't say much for the Canucks, really.
I think the Canucks, though, are on the upswing. It certainly looks like they're playing better, more successfully. Yeah. What I've noticed about hockey, and we will get to other things, folks, including metaphysics, as a matter of fact, but in the meantime, I've noticed in NHL hockey, more than in other major league sports, you can go a decade or longer without having success against another team or in their building or in your building. It gets to be streaky. I'm not sure why that is, but there's a lot of that in the NHL.
Yeah, and obviously a good example is the Lightning and the Canucks at home. Means 2016, that's like 9 years. That's a long time to not be a team at your home in your home rink. So yeah, it does happen a lot, Gary. Don't know why.
We love NHL hockey.
Yeah, and I often pull for the Canadian teams as well. It's not, for me, it's not a country thing. It's a team thing. When I like a team, I'm kind of cheering for them. And I always like to see the Canadians playing, in the Stanley Cup or at least in the final four teams.
Well, we've been living through quite a drought. The last time a Canadian team won the Cup was in 1993, Montreal Canadiens. That's a long time.
It is a long time.
And then there's Toronto. My heart aches for Toronto Maple Leafs. Come on, Toronto, one of these years, you got to get to the final and make some noise. Their fans are so loyal. I mean, to me, even though Toronto has not enjoyed the kind of success of the New York Yankees in baseball by any stretch, but there are some teams, it doesn't matter where you're living, you are loyal to that team. And I note that about the Toronto Maple Leafs fans. They're just crazy about the Leafs, and they're always hoping. It's like Chicago Cubs fans in baseball. Wait till next year. Wait till next year.
Yeah.
The Leafs haven't won since 1967, so that's a long streak.
Wow. Well, what is interesting to me, and this is actually more toward what our conversation is going to be about today, Garnet, is there is that combination in baseball, but even much more so in hockey, where you have the Canadian teams and the United States teams playing each other. And I love it when both national anthems are sung at the games, and it's truly more of an international sport in that way. And our two countries do that quite a bit. One of the things Gary and I were actually curious about and wanted to talk to you about today was the distinction between United States and Canada as to your Christmas celebrations. Are there things that happen in Canada that are uniquely Canadian and that we wouldn't necessarily find here, either in movies or music or food or anything that you can think of?
I don't really think so, Suzanne. And I don't know, not having lived in the U.S., I wasn't party to their Christmas celebrations, but watching the TV shows and the movies, it seems like they do things, or you do things pretty much the same as we do here. I don't think there's any major difference. We sort of follow along. I'm not sure who started the trend. We probably got ours from jolly old England. I'm not sure.
Yes, yeah.
And you probably did as well. So we just sort of carried on. I think they're very, very similar.
What I've heard said by Brits of my acquaintance, and I'm going back quite a few years when I had one conversation in particular, and that is in the UK, there is a popular view, and it may be, how it's never good to overgeneralize there, but there is the view in the UK that Canada is kind of, as it were, is from the standpoint of Britain, Canada is like America Light. there's so, well, we drive on the same side of the road, for example,
Yeah.
and that Canada it's so close to America that it would be impossible not to absorb some of our cultural identity, even if it's borrowed, even if it's tweaked by Canada, that proximity creates a kind of affinity.
Yeah, and I think that's right. I think that we are, calling us a U.S. light, I think is, I'm not offended by that at all. I think that's clearly who we are. And I think that a lot of Americans just regard Canada in that way, which is not a detriment, I don't think. I mean, I'm happy with that.
United States with better health care. That's all.
Exactly. Yeah.
Have you ever seen the program Ghosts? Does that play in Canada? A show called Ghosts?
With Patrick Swayze and
no, not that one.
The TV show.
It's a comedy about a couple who inherit a large mansion, which they're in the process of turning into a bed and breakfast, a little resort hotel. And they find that the mansion is haunted by a bunch of ghosts. Is that not familiar or not playing in Canada?
Yeah, it does play in Canada. Okay. I watched part of one season and I didn't really do anything for me, so I haven't watched it since. But okay. Yeah, it is available up here. Yeah.
We kind of got into the show, and then during the writers' strike, none of the shows have come on newly yet here that would normally be coming on in September. And so because of the writers' strike, we're getting these commercials on TV that say all new programming right after the Super Bowl, after the big Super Bowl game in February. So shows that would be new in September or October aren't going to be new until February sometime. And we're waiting to see, what's going to make it or not make it after all that. But what some of the shows have done, or the stations, they've done a lot of reality show programming. They've done a lot of repeat programming. And in the case of Ghosts, it was a program that was borrowed from the UK and Americanized. And so they've been running the UK version of Ghosts on Thursday which you can see how the United States show was patterned after the UK show, but there are those distinctions between the two countries that are pretty clear. And they very similar ghosts, but not completely the same down the line. And it was, for me, quite evident last night that there is a country distinction when the title character, the main woman of the show, decides that she wants to sing a Christmas carol at their Christmas gathering. And she's hoping that all of her guests, her husband's family, will come and surround her at the piano and they will all sing together. Well, you're kind of waiting and waiting because you know you're hoping or you think you know what the payoff is going to be. And it turns out not to be what I expected. She goes and sits at the piano alone. Her house guests are all over the house doing something else. And I know what's going to happen. She's going to sing Silent Night. She doesn't sing Silent Night. And I thought, now that is a UK song. That's an English song. They would celebrate, and that would be a song sung in England that wouldn't be thought of in the United States. And then what the good part of the payoff was, even though all of her house guests were spread all over the house, her Christmas carol was sung with all of the ghosts in the house. So they had a chorus of, 10 or 12 people all singing around the piano, but she was the only one that could hear them since she's the only one who can hear and see the ghosts. So it turned out well in the end, but it really got Gary and I to thinking about the differences in countries and how the holiday is celebrated. And so, we wanted to ask you today about any distinctions that you knew about. Have you ever talked about the holidays or Christmas time with your spirit guide, Albert?
No, that topic has never come up. We've talked a lot about religion, Christianity, and Jesus Christ and his mother and Mary Magdalene and so on, but not about the actual celebration. I mean, that's the who knows exactly when Jesus Christ was born. I mean, they pegged it to December 25 a long time ago. They just probably picked a date out of the air. I've never asked Albert that. To me, it just doesn't seem to be really important when he was physically born on Earth. I mean, the rest is a lot more important than when he was actually born. So we never really talked about it.
As to the latter point, I totally agree with you, Garnet. My understanding, primitive as it is, about Christmas being Christ's birthday, it almost certainly is not December 25. The early church, and by that I'm thinking the Roman Catholic Church, if not before, co-opted a pagan holiday, the solstice, and they adapted it to the needs of this emerging Christian church. So now Christ's birthday is Christmas Day, whereas it's possible he was born in the spring. I mean, people have tried to figure this out for, I don't know, maybe 2,000 years
yeah.
or thereabouts, but this is when we celebrate it, and I don't see it changing anytime soon.
No, and even if somebody comes up with some sort of so-called definitive proof about when he was born, people aren't going to believe it. They're going to say, no, it's December 25. That's just the way we operate. So it doesn't matter,
absolutely.
Really.
My father came through, he does many times. I feel like he's there by my side, but when I do consult with mediums, which I do from time to time, and glad for the opportunity each time, my dad comes through. It's like he is waiting on speed dial there in heaven. And that subject came up one time. And in this sitting, my father communicated that over there on the other side, these religious distinctions, and I think I'm borrowing his phrase verbatim, don't mean a damn thing. These are human considerations while we're in Earth school, doing the curriculum in these bodies. But over there on the other side, those distinctions don't count either for anything or don't count for much, because this is how we mark time in significant ways while we are on Earth. On the other side, I think the rules are largely different and the game is played a very different way.
Yeah, that's my information as well, Gary. Absolutely. They do. They don't sort of honor religious traditions or holidays or any of the stuff that we did. Over there, that's all irrelevant. It's sort of like, okay, that happens on your school. You have to abide by it when you're there if you incarnate as a human. But over on the spirit side, it doesn't mean anything to them at all. And in terms of marking time, as we've talked before, there's no linear time on the spirit side. So no past or no future. It's all one big now. And so they don't need to mark time because time as we know it just doesn't exist over there. So really hard for us to understand that. Certainly for me it is anyway. But Albert has explained that to me many times very patiently. And every time I say I can't wrap my mind around that, Albert, he says, don't worry, you're dealing with the limitations of your puny human mind. So don't worry about it.
You had to get that word puny in there.
Yeah.
Very good. Do you have any particular traditions? Do you have an artificial tree, a real tree? Is there something that you do pretty consistently to mark the holidays?
Well, we always have a Christmas tree. And until this is the first year that we had an artificial tree. We've always done the real trees. So finally, I would always grumble and complain that I'd have to drive to the tree lot, put the tree on top of the SUV, strap it down, bring it back, haul into the house, and then when it's taken down, you have to haul it out with all the needles spreading everywhere, put it back on top, and take it to the chipping place. Not a big deal, but I was always sort of grumbling about that. So my wife said, "Okay, this year we're going to get." She actually did this last January when they went on sale. Got an artificial tree, so this is the first year for the artificial tree, and I think that's. I mean, to me, it doesn't really. It's the symbolism, really. I mean,
Yes.
the real trees have that nice smell, but the artificial tree all decorated up, which my wife does a very good job of. It's still all the same, and so I don't miss it. I don't miss the real trees a bit. It's a lot like fireplaces, all the way through my life, except for this home here. I've always wanted to have wood burning fireplaces. I was a purist, you have to have the wood, the crackling, the smell, all that sort of thing. Here in this house, we decided to do natural gas burning fireplaces, and I find it great. I mean, I miss the crackling and the smell, but all you have to do is flick a switch and away it goes. You don't have to clean out ashes. So it's so much simpler. And I think that's just part of getting old, is you sort of want to have a simpler life with less complications. So yeah, we absolutely do have a Christmas tree. Our tradition is that when I was a kid, Christmas Eve, I was raised as a Roman Catholic, as you know. So on Christmas Eve, we always had to go to midnight mass. And the idea behind that, of course, is that you don't have to get up Christmas morning then and go to church. So you go midnight mass, and that was just year after year. And then they changed that a while back, and they said, okay, well, if you go at 7 o'clock on Christmas Eve, it counts for Christmas Day. So they made it a lot easier. But midnight mass was an absolute tradition. And I only attended when I was a kid. I would serve mass. So it was quite an affair, actually, with all the candles lit and the choirs singing, and it was actually quite magical.
Nice. Yes, I agree. I've gone to several late night services on Christmas Eve, and they are always, as you said, quite magical. That's really nice. When Christmas rolls around, I've had a favorite song for a long time. Gary's had a favorite song for a long time for Christmas, and we kind of wait to see when we're going to hear it on the radio. If we don't hear it on the radio, we'll play it on a CD or on our computers, but we're not going to miss our favorite songs. Is there one song that you kind of wait to hear every year, or that just kind of speaks to you?
Yeah, my favorite is White Christmas, and that's probably the most popular Christmas song in all of history. Yeah, I really like to hear that one. Silent Night is another favorite. You mentioned that earlier in the show. The ones I really don't like, Suzanne, are the sort of the commercial ones. Santa Claus Coming to Town and that sort of thing. It just doesn't resonate with me at all. And so I like the White Christmas is sort of a commercial one. Silent Night, of course, is a religious sort of one. I mean, I don't practice the Catholic faith anymore, but I certainly really enjoy some of the Christmas carols that evolved from the Christian Church and the Catholic Church. So they're all good. And the thing is that after playing, I have a whole collection of Christmas CDs here, which my wife gets me to dig out of the storage room every Christmas. She wants to start playing them sort of like early December. By the time Christmas Day comes around, I'm sick and tired of them, to be honest. But I do enjoy them for a while.
I've been putting one CD in my car every time I leave. I'm playing Christmas music in the car. And when the CD is done, I replace it with another one. Interestingly enough, I listened to one this year and I thought, you know what? I don't particularly like it. I think I'm going to get rid of it. So I'm going to be one CD less. And then Gary and I were listening to a bunch of old time singers from probably more like 50s and 60s that we were listening to the other day, and we were trying to guess who they were, and so Bing Crosby was evident, and we did pretty well with a Perry Como, but there were some others there that we were kind of scratching our heads and had to look up on the cover to see who it was. A Vic Damone or
Eddie Arnold, I think.
Eddie Arnold was one, and just some others that we wouldn't really. Mahalia Jackson, Vicky Carr. There were some people who were singing on this old CD that we just didn't recognize. So that's kind of a guessing game. So that was fun.
This doesn't have anything to do with Christmas, at least as far as I know. But since the last time we got together on the radio, Garnet, the late great Gordon Lightfoot, not only a Canadian treasure, but as far as I'm concerned, a world treasure, a man whom I saw perform decades apart, but I saw him twice live. I just love Gordon Lightfoot and his music. I'm sorry that he passed away. It's sorry that somebody with his heart and soul should have to pass at all, but heaven gained an angel. And I just think of so many songs that he did. If there is a Canadian spirit to be expressed in song, I think Gordon Lightfoot did it as good or better than anyone.
Yeah, I agree with you. He's one of my favorites, and if he is symbolizes Canadian music, I'd be quite happy to go along with that. There'd be a lot of people here who would say, "Well, what about Celine Dion, Paul Anka?" But Gordon Lightfoot is clearly up there in my view.
It seems like every culture, in order to have a full expression of what it means to be of that ethnicity or nationality, needs a great balladeer. The heart and soul type of music that comes through in a ballad, it has a universality to it, but each ethnicity or each nationality adds its own special touch. And that was part of the giftedness of Gordon Lightfoot. And when I listen to some of his songs, unlike just about anyone, the Beatles can do it to me, of course, and even the Who, few other groups, yes, there. But Gordon Lightfoot gets my skin tingling. The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald, oh my God, I can't listen to it without getting chills. He just has that way about him. He's able to communicate everything from a pure love to pure lust, to tragedy, to aspiration, to heartbreak and disappointment. The guy was the whole package.
Now, Gary, when you're listening to Gordon Lightfoot, if you didn't know that he was Canadian, could you suspect that he was not American just by listening to him?
I wouldn't suspect it until, I knew he was Canadian because when If You Could Read My Mind came out, and there was a lot of talk about the song and about Gordon Lightfoot. So I was aware. But if I listened to his library of music, Canadian Railroad Trilogy would have given him away, for example, but I just happened to know that about him. But to his sound, no, he sounds like, when he's singing, he could just as easily be an American soft ballad country singer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he's one of our best Canadian singers for sure. I'm very proud that he is a Canadian. Too bad he had to pass away, but we all go sooner or later.
And him later, he was in, I believe, his early 80s when he passed there. And I saw him in, I think it was, let me go back now. I saw him in 1978. And then I saw him, I believe it was in 2015, 2016, maybe, here in Sarasota. A lot of years between, and he certainly looked different, but there was still the magic and still that gentle sense of humor to go with. And he played well, and his voice was pretty well shot. I mean, at least that night, he just didn't sound like the Gordon Lightfoot of yore. But the lady sitting next to me said, "I don't care. I still think he's gorgeous."
Yeah, he's a great Canadian icon for sure.
Deservedly so. We are talking with Garnet Schulhouser about a lot of things. And let us continue our conversation. Who knows where we'll go next, but we're going to take a break now. Give us a couple of minutes and we'll be right back. We are Mantz and Mitchell, and we're sure glad you joined us.
Hi, everybody. This is Anson Williams from Happy Days, and I'm so excited to tell you about American Road. It is the best car travel magazine in the world. They have the most fantastic adventures detailed in each magazine with all your itinerary. We could just jump in the car with your family and have the most fabulous adventures you've ever had in your life. Please get a copy of American Road and start your own.
Friday, Mantz and Mitchell welcome back Garnet Schulhouser from Victoria, BC for another round of metaphysical Q&A. This time we're doing it holiday style.
On Saturday, Tamara Vaughn, an ordained minister, joins us to talk about the universality of compassion and holiday spirit with or without religious affiliation.
Bringing you mastery and mystery since 2007.
We are Mantz and Mitchell, Friday and Saturday mornings at 10 on Alternative Talk AM 1150.
Some people know a good thing when they hear it. Alternative Talk 1150.
Welcome back to Mantz and Mitchell, and our guest this hour, Garnet Schulhouser from...
And the best place to get information about my books is on my website, which is garnetschulhouser.com. That's not easy to remember, but if you Google any of my book titles, you'll get to my website. And on my website, there's information about my books. There's convenient buy links. You can click onto Amazon, Barnes & Noble, whatever, and get right to the page where you can buy my books. So my books are available in all the online stores and some of the bricks and mortar stores. I also have my social media links on my website. So Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. My YouTube channel has has all the postings of all of my radio shows and podcasts there. So if you want to listen to any of the previous ones, including all previous 11 shows with Mantz and Mitchell, they're there. And I've also been doing a series of videos dealing with my books, and a new series dealing with my QHHT practice, which is short for Quantum Healing Hypnosis Technique, which was a hypnotic technique developed by the late, great Dolores Cannon. And so some of my videos are on there, and you can click on the on my social media channels, as I mentioned. There's also book excerpts on my website and book videos. So there's lots of information there. If people want to find out what I've done and what my books are about, just go right to my website. I have a separate website for my QHHT practice, which is Garnet Schulhouser, QHHT.com, and there people can read about QHT and BQH, which is the remote version, and they can book an appointment there. So those are my two main sources of information. And my email address is on my website. If people want to send a comment or a question to me, I try to respond to most of my emails. I read them all, and so I'd love to hear from your listeners if they have any questions for me.
Excellent. And I'm going to very quickly go ahead and spell your name. First name is Garnet, Garnet. Last name is Schulhouser, Schulhauser. If you want to find Garnet Schulhouser, go to his website and all the information will be there. Thank you for letting our listeners know how they can find you.
I'm always curious when people undergo a significant life change, a pivotal moment, Garnet, and it would be interesting for our listeners to hear, and I'm sure interested in hearing it. Was there a point at which you had to make a decision, a holy moment, if you will, where in writing your books, in taking this turn in your life, you had to decide to, in the spiritual, the metaphysical sense, come out of a metaphysical closet, which is a big step for somebody who was a gung-ho lawyer, a thriving practice, and then all of a sudden you're talking about things that your colleagues would regard as either irrational or even inappropriate, And I'm wondering how you handled that, because there had to be a point where you decide, I'm going to do this no matter what.
Well, when I first met Albert, I didn't talk to anyone about it. Certainly not my colleagues or partners or clients. I didn't even talk to my wife initially. So I sort of kept it all to myself. And then I retired from the law a year after I met Albert. And then he kept on gently giving me, a 2x4 over the head to get me writing my manuscript. So finally I caved in and I wrote it. And then that was a big decision point, Gary and Suzanne. It was sort of like, I've written the manuscript. Should I throw it in the drawer, never to see the light of day again? Or should I try to find a publisher? And of course, the big concern for me was that I thought that many of my former law partners and clients would think that I've become demented, that I got crazy. It was totally out of character for me to write a spiritual book, because when I was practicing law, they saw me as a button-down, stuffed shirt, condescending, arrogant lawyer. And I never talked about, I didn't talk about religion or spirituality or anything. And so I knew that some of them would be in real shock. So that was my concern. But then I had to confront the fact that, okay, if I didn't get my book published, I'd probably regret it for the rest of my life. And if I did publish it, I'd lose some of my former partners and friends and so on who wouldn't talk to me anymore. But I thought, okay, well, you have to do what's right. And I felt right in my heart that I should just go ahead and publish it. And of course, I wasn't practicing in the law firm at that stage. I mean, I wouldn't have released the book if I was still practicing law. I just couldn't do it. But so I'd already left. And so when I had it published, and I did lose people. Some of my former partners don't talk to me. They don't say to my face, but I know they're thinking that I'm crazy. But there was a few that actually did send me nice emails after my book was published saying, good for you having the courage to come out of the spiritual closet, publish that book, and I wish you every success. So there was some bad things, some good things, but overall it was entirely positive, because some of the people that I left behind, or they left me behind, I miss them, but I mean, that's just life. Sometimes you have to just move on and carry on with your new regime. But I've gained so many more new spiritually minded, spiritually enlightened people, friends in my journey, that overall it's been overwhelmingly very positive. And the people who think that I'm crazy, well, fine, they're entitled to their opinion. What I say to people when they doubt what I'm saying or challenge what I'm saying, or some of them are even more blunt to say I'm full of BS, I say to them, at the end of the day, when we're both dead, we'll both know who was telling the truth. That usually shuts them up, because they don't know how to respond to that one. But, so they can believe whatever they want to believe. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, we all go back to the same place, and then they can see, well, I was telling the truth, and they can understand that, they maybe missed the ball by not reading the books or not paying closer attention. But everyone's on their own journey, and everyone's journey is different. You have to sort of carry on with, for the most part, what you plan for your life. And then you have to sort of believe what feels right to you in your heart. And if they believe that I'm crazy, that's fine. But there's a whole lot of people who sign on to what Albert has told me when they've read my books. And that's really very gratifying when I get emails from people saying, well done, I agree with you. Please. I get a lot of people now after I've written 5 books saying, when is book 6 coming out? And I say, well, I'm waiting for Albert to kick me in the rear and get me going on it, but he hasn't done that yet. But there probably will be a book 6 at some point, unless I die sooner. And well, that's the way it goes.
Well, we hope that doesn't happen.
Gary and I have been talking lately about time and about life being eternal. And we've had this kind of ongoing conversation over coffee in the morning. Like, not obsessively, but just occasionally as it comes up and we look at it. If time really is eternal, if there is no beginning and there is no end, it's a construct for human beings, it really makes sense to me that what we are experiencing here on Earth is a tiny little segment of eternality, which would mean we've had one life, we've had 10,000 lives, who knows? It's interesting to contemplate that mystery and to think about the fact that even though this is just one point, one now moment in time, if it is really eternal, it still counts as all that there is. When you have had your conversations with Albert, do you talk about the past lives and reincarnation and things like that?
Oh yes, all the time. I mean, he's given me an incredible insight as to how the cycle of reincarnation works, and when you think about it, it really makes sense what he says. I've had so many people say to me, one of the major things that he said is that you can't is that we all choose our lives. We choose the broad blueprint for our lives. So you choose where you're going to be born, who your parents are going to be, who your siblings, other relatives are going to be. I mean, your life is not fixed. It's not etched in stone, because once you get here, you forget that you have a life plan and you have free will to act. And so it never plays out entirely the way we want to. But I mean, you can choose to be born as a blind beggar in Calcutta, or you can choose to be born as somebody who's lives in a wealthy family in England. I mean, you choose all that. And so for a lot of people say, well, if I got to choose my life, what on earth was I thinking? I must have been out of my mind to come into my life, come into planet Earth, because it's not a walk in the park. And once you're over there, before you incarnate, of course, everything is all different. And Albert says it's like a very short adventure in the physical plane, because there's no linear time. So a human lifetime of 80 years is just a blink of an eye, literally. So when you're over there, you say, okay, well, what the heck? I'm going to try a life in tropical Africa, whatever, say, because I want to experience something there. And it's when you're over there, it's such a short little adventure that you don't really, you're not deterred by what may happen. I mean, you'll know what's going to happen on planet Earth generally. I mean, if you're born into a certain area, some of the things that you're going to experience, what you're up against. You freely choose that because you want to experience it. And so I always say to people, and so many people have said to me, well, when I finish this life, there's no way I'm coming back to this hellhole. I say you'll have a much different perspective, because you just see things differently over there. And a life on Earth is just literally a blink of an eye. So it's not a big deal. It is to us. A lifetime of 80 years is a long time. Some people may think it's too short. 80 years seems like a long time to me, but who knows? Some people die when they're in their 30s, and some people live until 100. You never know where you're going to go. But the other interesting aspect of it is that our souls choose when we leave, which may seem strange to people, but our souls will decide when they want to exit the incarnation. And when people die by accidental means, like in a car accident, that's not really an accident, because that person's soul decided that car accident was their off-ramp to get out of this incarnation. And so it's really hard for a lot of people to quite understand why we would come here if we have free choice, but you can't really appreciate it as a human. You have to go back to the spirit side. There you see the whole picture, and it's like, okay, well, I've had 250 lives. Let's go for a few more, because I'm still not done with the Earth School. And so everyone has the same choice. Not everyone's choice is the same. Everyone's journey is different. So it's just really fascinating, but it really makes sense to me that how the cycle of reincarnation works, and the fact that in terms of time, that we have an eternity. That just means that if you want to have 250 lives, you can. If you want to have 5,000 lives, you can. There's no deadlines. There's no timetables, because you are an eternal being. Albert just says that everyone has their own choice, and that's really the magical thing about reincarnation. And if you want to just stay on the spirit side and never incarnate again, you can do that too, but you just don't learn as much. It's sort of like, you get the sense of adventure over there and say, well, I didn't do all the things I wanted to do. I didn't check off all the boxes in all my earthly incarnations, so I'm going to go back and try it again, just because I want to do it. Nobody forces you, but you just choose to do it.
I had a medium minister say one time, when we leave, we're never finished. And it stuck with me so strongly that, we have this idea that, on the last day of our lives, we'll end up at zero somehow. And we never do. With life being eternal, we never get to that 0 point. There are things that are left unfinished, projects that were not done, that are sitting in the closet, money that hasn't been spent. We don't actually complete in the way that our minds think we're going to complete. We are not finished. And so when we leave, we do have the opportunity to come back and do this again. And, you can look at that a couple of different ways, positively or negatively.
Yeah, that's very true, Suzanne. Yeah, we have the choice. We can come back and finish what we didn't finish or what we didn't experience. That's, as I said, that's entirely our choice. But there are no finish lines for a soul. There's no point where a soul, hits the finish line and says, okay, that's it. I mean, there's always things to do. The universe is expanding. There's different things happening. And so if you've had incarnations on planet Earth, well, you may choose to incarnate on a different planet as a different life form. And since these things are being created and in flux and change all the time, there's never a finished moment. There's never a point where you say, okay, that's it, I'm done. And I'm not sure I want to ever hit that point, actually. I mean, just thinking out loud, I mean, what do you do if we've finished everything? I mean, I think you want to keep on having challenges, things to experience, and that's, it's an eternity, which seems like a long time, and certainly is, but there's lots of things to explore, lots of things to do as a soul, and I'm just happy that, we're all part of this game, and the game never ends. There's no finish line.
There's no finish line. I certainly hope that's the case, Garnet. In addition to that, I do wonder sometimes, this has crossed my mind, I don't know how many times, we're doing a pretty good job of screwing up the planet. And I don't just mean because of all the tribal warfare that goes on. I mean, that's one set of problems, of course. But just what we're doing to the climate, what we're doing to our Earth home, to Mother Gaia. And from the other side, they've got to be scratching their heads going, you people there, you humans, you've got to live on that planet. It is Earth's school. And what are you doing to the campus?
No, absolutely. And I get very distressed at what we're doing with our planet. I've had a couple of conversations with Gaia, the consciousness of Mother Earth, and she just laments. She figuratively shakes her head, say, what are those humans doing? Don't they know that they have to live on this planet? Why are they polluting it? It's sort of like, it's the old saying, you don't take a dump on your doorstep. I mean, that's what we're doing. Basically, we're fouling our air, our water, everything else. And she's wondering, when are they going to wake up? When are they going to wake up and decide they have to be more strident in terms of curbing the pollution and getting the ecosystem back into balance? And she doesn't have any answers. She just knows that it's got to start from the grassroots, from the people, move on up through the politicians and the people who run the governments. That's the movement that has to happen. And we're doing better at that. We're doing way better now than we did, say, 40 or 50 years ago. We're more aware of the pollution. We're more aware of the harm we're doing to Gaia. But we need to have more and more people on side. And of course, the balancing act is if you are more protective of the environment, a lot of commercial activities like fossil fuel burning and so on has to be cut back. And so those are the tug of war that goes on in terms of why we aren't doing it this better. And so, I mean, and I can understand people saying, yeah, well, if you want to really cut out pollution, a lot of people are going to be without jobs and they're going to suffer. I understand that. I think there's a way of doing it so we can sort of balance the two, in a nice fashion that doesn't harm the economics too much, but keeps our planet cleaner. And I think we can move towards that. I mean, I think we are. God hopes that we don't blow up our planet before that happens.
That's right, because there is the question of human destiny, and it would be the height of folly and arrogance for us to assume that we are a species that is not in danger of extinction. We talk about this or that bird, this or that lizard, this or that spider, what have you. They are extinct. Yes. Do you think it can't happen to us? It would be highly presumptuous for us to think that, well, that would never happen to us. Of course it can happen to us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've asked Albert a few times, like, is there hope for humanity on planet Earth? And he says, yes, he's optimistic, but he won't tell me for sure whether we do it or not. And I don't know whether he can see into the future or not, but he says he's optimistic. He says, but we have a lot of work to do, and it's not a guaranteed thing. We could fall off the rails, and we can end up destroying all life on our planet, including all humans. And he hopes, of course, that doesn't happen. So do I. But he is optimistic that we will get past this rough patch in the road eventually, and get back to a more balanced ecosystem. But we have a lot of work to do.
Very good.
And so we look ahead to 2024. I guess I'll just ask for the sake of asking, Garnet, do you have any inklings? Do you have any impressions about what awaits us in the coming year? We've got a busy year ahead with our presidential election. Yes, there's that. And trials galore there, but there are trials and there are trials. When you look ahead, do you receive any impressions about what the coming year is going to bring, what challenges and what opportunities?
Well, we have always the same old challenges as we just discussed about the environment. The biggest challenge for humans is to have the people who are in control of things, the government leaders and so on. They have to be able to curtail their negative emotions, which is, for the most part, is powered by greed, lust for power. One country wants to take over the other country's resources. Humans have to control their negative emotions. And until they do that, we're going to have wars, we're going to have genocide, we're going to have all the stuff that's going on now. So I don't have any foresight into what's going to happen in 2024. Hopefully we can continue to sort of move up the spiritual ladder and curtail our negative emotions, but I don't know. And of course, Albert won't tell me. As much as I'd like to know, he won't say anything other than keep on plugging away, guys.
Garnet Schulhouser, thank you for joining us today. End of the year. We really appreciate it.
Very happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Thank you for having me. I enjoy these shows as always, and I hope you two have a happy holiday as well.
Thank you.
Will. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in today. Been a lot of fun. Always interesting when Garnet joins us.
Join us tomorrow.
Well, we'll be back tomorrow, and we've also got Robin and Lightfoot coming up next. Stay tuned, everybody.